Pink Floyd isn't officially knocked on the head, but why aren't we ever going to do anything again? It's not much fun anymore, I think, is the answer to that. Few political problems within the organisation, which I'm not prepared to go into.
Political rather than personal?
Well, politics is about people, really, isn't it, Richard?
And it just seemed to do something under the name Roger Waters.
Well, no, it's not quite. It didn't quite happen like that. When I was writing The Wall, I was writing this concurrently. So the bones of the two pieces I put down on tape. When I write something, I make a demo of it on my own first, and then start getting other people involved in it. And I made a demo of the pros and cons and a demo of The Wall. And in whenever it was, 1979,
yeah.
took them into the chaps and said, here are, there's two pieces here, and I have a feeling that I'd like to make one of them as a solo project and do one of them as a band project, and I let them choose which one they would like to do as a band project. And they chose The Wall, so it's always been on the cards since then that I was going to make this as a solo thing. They didn't want to do pros and cons anyway because they felt it was even more personal to me in terms of its content and philosophy and ideas, whatever, than The Wall was, and that it was better left to me.
Why did you wait so long, actually, Roger, to do a solo thing? Because other people, I mean, the other boys did them back 10 years ago, didn't they?
Well, yes, they did. Well, I was sort of doing them anyway, but they were called Pink Floyd records. But I was able to do anything that I wanted within the context of that, and it was very safe and comfy. That nice big warm name hovering over us all, protecting us, And so I think it's always a struggle to take that step out into the big dangerous world outside.
You're aware much more of the spotlight being on you now as a person. I mean, it always has been, actually, but I'm just wondering whether psychologically it is a bit.
I'm not sure that it has. I thought that out there in record land, that people did kind of identify me with quite a lot of the work that went into the Floyd, particularly in terms of the shows. But they don't. I know this. This has become known to me as a simple fact because the bugs aren't going out and buying the tickets.
Really?
Which I'm very surprised by.
What about the people you got playing with you this time? I mean, people like Mr. Clapton,
Mr. Clapton, yeah.
An incredible collection of musicians you put together for this project.
Yeah, they are. Eric, when I was making pros and cons, I kept thinking, well, who should I use, and going through sort of lists of guitarists, and I think he was always there in the back of my mind, and I think I sort of felt that I couldn't ring him up and ask him,
What, because he's Eric Clapton?
Yes, exactly. I'm subject to all those kind of myths as well. And in the end, Carolyn, actually, my wife, said, well, why don't you ring him up? So I did. And he was very interested, came and listened to the demo and said, yeah, I like it, I'll do it.
Bringing somebody like Eric Clapton into your project, how much leeway do you give Eric to be himself, or do you still like very much to be calling the shots in that situation?
I call the shots. In fact, that Eric, when he started work on it, he said, look, this is your record.
You're the governor.
Yeah, I'll do what you want me to do. You have to help me by telling me what you want. It's no good just going, well, do you want to play on this bit, Eric? Because it doesn't work, And normally in any project like that, one person has to have the vision of what the thing is going to be like.
You're talking from experience here, obviously. Because, I mean, there were times in Pink Floyd where everybody had their own say, weren't there? Where you all kind of... What was the album where you all did one side each? Was that
Armageddon? Yeah, what a disaster. Yeah.
So was it a situation then that you were just making decisions and the other boys in the band just said, yeah, okay, that's a good idea? And then slowly it became much more you and less them. It became more like musicians with you. And is that how it worked?
Dave and I used to argue about stuff quite often. And there's definitely musical ideas, and bits of arrangement and things that have come out of his particular guitar style. So they become elements, that are used within the overall picture of the whole piece.
Let's talk about the tour, which is imminent. It must be very difficult, or maybe it's not, you tell me, to top the last one. I mean, you've had to do it several times now.
No chance of that. No chance of that. In fact, when I was starting to think about doing this live, I just absolutely decided that whatever I was going to do, it wasn't going to be a big show in Earl's Court. No question of that, because I didn't want to have to approach the temptation of having to try and do something that was bigger and better than the Wall show, because it would be ludicrous. So God knows what's gone wrong.
What are you doing?
Well, I've drifted into doing something fairly spectacular, simply because that's what I know best.
So what's it going to look like, the show?
I'm using 3 35mm film projectors behind back projection screens to create the illusion that we, the audience, are the hero in bed in his bedroom, and using that as a basic technique to illustrate, I suppose, the dreams and nightmares that go on during the course of the story, during the course of this period of the night that is the pros and cons of hitchhiking.
Do you enjoy live performances? Because you're a quiet sort of bloke, aren't you?
Yeah.
Really? No extrovert.
Well, there must be a fair bit of extrovert in me, or else I wouldn't get up on a stage and do it. I think I find it safer to be extrovert when I'm actually standing on a stage, with a guitar in my hands, than the rest of the time.
Are you playing the part of Roger Waters when you're up there, though? I mean, is it almost like being an actor?
It was in The Wall, yeah. It was I was almost kind of acting a part then. It is about trying to, make contact with my inner feelings and allow that to come out for that moment while I'm there with that audience in that place. So it's a strange thing, and when that doesn't happen, it becomes extremely dull.
So it becomes a real communication and a project, and a special period of your life. That period when you're on the road.
Well, yes. I mean, we're not in fact doing that many gigs, and The Wall was partly about the experience of having lost that feeling. So that the actual physical building of a wall across the front of the stage was a theatrical attempt to convey the fact that I felt that I'd lost contact with everybody. And that was in response to the last real Floyd tour, which was back in 1977, which was hell, absolute hell. We were playing these huge stadiums, 80,000 people. And when you get involved in those kind of shows, it's only about one thing, and that's money.
When you put a record together, do you ever think about the dictates of trends or fashion or what's in the charts now?
No, I don't. It's hard enough, it's hard enough making records or writing songs, having ideas, creating things without worrying about all that crap. I mean, the only thing that matters to me is whether I can get whatever the central feeling is. That's all my music is about, is communicating my feelings to other people, really.
Do you ever get embarrassed at things that you wrote, a couple of years ago, and you're now saddled with having to perform them still? But
I don't think I wrote anything a couple of years ago. No. Well, I don't never have to perform anything. I'm not going to. I wouldn't dream of performing anything that embarrassed me. If somebody said to me now, right, here's £1 million, go out and play Atom Heart Mother, I'd say, you must be joking. I'm not playing that rubbish. Because I really would be embarrassed then.
You do what you want to do, and hopefully people like it.
Yeah, that's the way I've always worked, and thank God it's worked in the past. So I think it would be ludicrous. In fact, I'm not always kind of high and mighty about it. Back in the past, in the very early days, we tried to have hit singles. There were a number of singles that came out, even when Sid was still in the band. There was one called Apples and Oranges. There was another one which was a song I wrote, I think, maybe Dave and I wrote it, called Point Me at the Sky. And if you survive till 2005, I hope you're incredibly thin, because if you are stout, something when you breathe out, people around you will have to breathe in.
Took a long time to write that.
God, did it ever? Point me at the sky and let it fly. I remember it well. So anyway, there were a number of attempts at, and it became quite clear after a couple of these that we just were no bloody good at it, and should scrub around all that.
You had a pretty good start, though. You must be honest. I mean, you had 2 massive hits, didn't you? I mean, Emily Play and Arnold Lane, they did damn well for themselves.
They did, and they were very good songs. But I mean, those were Sid's songs, and he didn't write anything after quite early 1968. I mean, his 2 solo albums are material that was already existed at that point.
Why did Sid leave? I mean, is there any non-obvious reason behind it?
No, there isn't any non-obvious reason. It's the obvious reason.
Do you ever meet him or talk to him at all now?
No. I've seen him maybe twice in the last, 15 years or however long it is since we parted company professionally.
It must seem like a whole... it's a different band. I mean, it's so long ago, those early days.
Yeah, completely.
Do you have any can you see any sort of relationship between that Roger Waters and the one who's sitting here now?
If you go back to those days, the only relationship, I suppose, is that the whatever was the motivation that caused me to go into a band, start playing in a band, is still there within me. Those kind of needs, I don't think you never get rid of them. You never satisfy that kind of hunger, I don't think. So that's still there. But in those very early days, I never had any pretensions to writing anything. That all came as a complete surprise as it's developed over the years. I mean, when I was at school, the idea of me writing anything was a complete joke. I was castigated from dawn till dusk and told I was completely hopeless at everything.
So you weren't the obvious superstar writer of the future at that stage?
Certainly not, no. But I don't think anybody is. What people are looking for in secondary schools is not what is going to help people to write songs or to write anything.
Does this get us back to the wall in a way? I mean, why are you motivated to write that?
Yeah, it's a part of the story of the wall was about those days. Those horrible school days, education by fear. Something that some of them are trying desperately to get us back to. Rhodes Boyson, for instance, is an advocate of that kind of education, as far as I can tell. And he wraps it up in notions of maintaining standards, but basically that's what it is, I think. Could be wrong.
Shall we talk a little bit about all the fuss and bother that's occurring about the whole hitchhiking concept? You must have heard people saying that it's sexist, the cover of the record, that people are saying, and I think maybe they haven't listened closely, that you're pro the idea of poor girls going out there and having the worst done to them because they're hitchhiking, they're asking for it. Are you surprised at the reaction?
Oh yes, incredibly surprised. I'm not surprised at the reaction to the girl's bum on the cover.
Why did you put it there?
Well, it illustrates a sexual fantasy that occurred to me. So it's a sexual fantasy of mine, if you like. And I liked the image of the girl floating in front of that strange background. I thought it was dreamlike. I thought it reads dream to me, but maybe I was too engrossed in the thing, because it obviously doesn't to lots of other people.
A lot of girls have been ripping the posters down.
Yes, I know. Well, to get onto that, the women against rape thing, or the sexism business, I don't understand at all. And if you can explain it to me, I'd be very happy to, have it explained to me.
I'm not one of the people who ripped it down.
No, I know, but I don't quite understand what sexist means within that context.
It's simply the using of a female image to promote something. I mean, it's like bra adverts. They're taking them off the tubes.
Well, that's bloody ludicrous, isn't it? It's just... I mean, are they against using any images of human beings to promote anything? I mean, would the people who object to using pictures of women to sell things, do they object to using pictures of men to sell things? Or pictures of dogs? I mean, or pictures of anything? Are they objecting to... Or does it have to have a sexual connotation? I.e., if a piece of advertising appeals to our libido, does that make it wrong? Because I've thought about it, because I've had all this stuff, coming in. and I can't make head nor tail of it, frankly.
What is the broader concept then of the piece?
Well, it's about a man in bed with his wife, waking from a nightmare, being soothed back to sleep again by his wife, then dreaming. Within the context of these dreams, his subconscious is weighing up the pros and cons of living with one woman within the framework of a family, and all the good things that brings you, against the call of the wild, if you like. It's one of the great paradoxes of the design of human beings is the disparity between the hopes and aspirations of men and the hopes and aspirations of women.
Yeah.
And these disparities are presumably based upon the biological, the separate biological functions in terms of human survival. You know, that man has been designed to go out and everything he can in order to, you know, populate the world, and that we should multiply and spread. And it appears, from my limited experience, that by and large, women are far more interested in providing a safe place within which to rear children, and if possible, keeping the hunter there, hunting for them, you know, which may all be very simplistic, and I'm sure I should be attacked by all kinds of women, and probably men too, all over the world, but so what?